Hi everyone, I'm Rob, just a guy with a hobby and a love for music. Today I'm going to cover something that's a bit more on the advanced side for music theory, but you don't really need to know a whole lot of traditional music theory in order to be able to use it. As long as you know what music intervals are, you can use this. So essentially it's a mathematical approach to writing music that leans more heavily into the chromatic side of things, and it's integer notation and interval vectors. And basically what we do here is we assign a number to each of the 12 notes, and then you create subsets or sets of these notes to create patterns. It creates some really cool sounding patterns, and it adds a little bit of chromaticism to your music. There's some quick things that I want to go over before we dive into actually using integer notation and vector intervals or interval vectors to actually write music. The first thing is this clock face, or this wheel, you could say, of integer notation. Essentially, what we're doing is we're assigning numeric values to each one of the 12 notes of the chromatic scale. So C is 0, C sharp is 1, D is 2, and so on and so forth until it gets all the way around to B at 11, and then it restarts at C. When I learn this, I use little t and little e for 10 and 11. You can use 10 and 11 if you want, but for the purpose of this video, I'm going to use t and e when I write them in my set. So another thing to kind of go over about the sets themselves is when you actually create the sets, if you see something like this, these squiggly brackets means that this set is not in its prime form. And what do I mean by prime form? The prime form is essentially just the set transposed to start at C. So that would look like this. It's the same exact set. It's just these are shifted down and they start at 0. And yeah, and then you use these hard closed brackets here instead of the little squiggly ones. So this is prime form of a set. So those are the two differences between the sets that I wanted to point out. The next thing is that the music that you create with these sets is technically not completely atonal. So although you're completely getting rid of like key signatures and stuff like that, because normally when you think about writing music, if you were in C major, you'd have C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And the main tonic would be C, right? Well, in this, if you only have 3 notes, you're not really following the normal standard like C major, or there's not a key signature assigned to just C, D, and E, right? So instead, it kind of creates this chromaticized version of a scale, and there's no way to really define it. However, if you have multiple sets that you're using, so let's say if you have a set of 2, 4, 6, and then 3, 7, and 10, when you play them separately, whatever one you play first or the play most of will sound more like home or like tonic compared to the other one. And if that doesn't make sense, that's perfectly fine. I'm just kind of getting into some nitty gritty, and I just want to explain that the music that you make with this isn't completely atonal. It is chromatic, or it's a bit chromatic, but it's not completely without any kind of center at all. So this is not something that you would do to create atonal music. So how do we actually create a integer or a set of numbers from this integer notation? Well, it's pretty simple actually. You can do it randomly, so you can just pick random numbers if you want, or if you know the intervals of music, you can kind of get a sense of how a set is going to sound depending on those intervals. So let's just do it randomly first. So this is like the easiest way that you can do this. Let's say you want to create a set of notes with 3, 7, 10, and 11. Oops. So these are the 4 notes that you want to use. When you go to actually create the interval vector, which I'll get to in just a minute, you just want to find the prime form of it, And that would look like this. 0, 4, 6, and then 7. So that would be the prime form there. And then from there, you just create the interval vector to see kind of what it would sound like. And then you would be done. And then you would just play these notes in this set in order, either forwards or backwards, or transpose. So you don't have to always start at 0 here. Like, you don't always have to start on C. You can move this up to 3, 7, 10, and 11. Or you can start on any note that you want, as long as these intervals are the same and you're playing 4 steps up, and then 2 more steps up, and then another step up, and you just keep repeating that, then you're good. The way that you can do this and think about this more seriously, though, and kind of know what it's going to sound like, is if you know what these intervals actually do. So, and this is where it's going to come into the actual interval vector itself. So there are 6 intervals that you can have between notes. You can have a minor second, a major second, a minor third, a major third, a perfect fourth, or a tritone. So this, what I mean by this is going from C to C sharp is a minor second, and it has a very distinct minor sounding change. So, and same thing with going from C to D, that is a major second, so it's going to sound a bit happier. And same thing with minor third and major third. Perfect is always going to sound really good, and then tritone is like the devil's interval, pretty much, where it sounds really wonky. So if you have a lot of tritones in your music, it's going to sound very weird. The thing that I'm going to show right now, or I guess copy over, is just an explanation of these steps. So, like I said, a minor second is just a half a step away. Major second is 2 half steps. And the way that you can use this on the clock is actually, it's laid out numerically. So from 0 to 1 is 1 half step, 0 to 2 is 2 half steps, 0 to 3 is 3 half steps, and so on and so forth. And you can count the number of half steps, or what the interval is, based off of where you start. So if you start at 1 and you're going to 3, 1, 2, you have 2 half steps, that is a major second. So when you create these sets, when you essentially, you can kind of pick and choose what kind of intervals you're looking for to kind of create what kind of sound you're looking for. So if you wanted something happy sounding or really like pretty sounding, you would want a lot of majors, major intervals, and a lot of perfect intervals, and not a whole lot of tritones. And an example of that is actually C major. So if we pull up C major, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C major is, well, I have it actually here. So this is the this is the set of C major, and when we actually do the interval analysis of this, which I will explain in just a second. So we have 2 minor seconds, 5 major seconds, 4 minor thirds, 3 major thirds, 6 perfect intervals, and 1 tritone. So a lot of perfect and major intervals, and only 1 tritone. So C major is going to sound, relatively good and pretty, pretty and pretty happy, because there's not a whole lot of minor and there's not a whole lot of tritones. Now, if you create scales with a lot of tritones and minors, it's going to sound, well, minor and kind of weird and not so pretty. So how do we actually create the interval vector from a set? It's pretty simple, actually. We'll use this one as an example, and I'll copy the set down here. And then I'm going to copy this outline here. So essentially, all we're doing is we're just trying to find all the intervals between each of the notes in the set. So 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and 0. So 0 to 4 is a major third because it's 4 steps. 0 to 6 is actually a tritone. So essentially, you're almost doing like a mathematical FOIL method, if you know what that means, where you start at 0, go to 4, 0 to 6, and then 0 to 7, and then we go 4 to 6, 4 to 7, and then 6 to 7. So 0 to 4 is a major third. 0 to 6 is actually a tritone. 0 to 7 is actually a major second. Or not a major second, a minor second. And the way that I did this is anything that's over 6, you just subtract 6 from it to get whatever value it is, since there's only 6 interval types. You subtract the 6 from the 7, and it gives you what's left over is the minor second. So 4 to 6 is a major second, since it's 2 steps. And then 4 to 7 is a minor third. And then 6 to 7 is a minor second. So our interval vector for this set is 2, 1, 1, 1, 0, 1. And by looking at this, there's a lot more minor and tritones than major. So this set is going to sound kind of minor and probably a little weird. The thing that I kind of want to explain about these sets when you actually use them, though, is when you play them, they always must be in order. So you always have to start with the first number, and then you follow these intervals always in order. So you'd start, if you were using this set here, 0, 4, 6, 7, you'd start at C, and then you'd go to E, and then you'd go to F sharp, and then you would go to G, and so on and so forth. You can transpose it, so you can start at C sharp instead if you want, and then jump to F, and then G, and then G sharp. As long as the intervals are always staying true and it's following this, you're totally fine. You can also reverse it, so you can start at 7 and then go to 6 and then 4 and then 0. And then you can also invert it as well. So instead of going up 4 here from 0 to 4, you go back 4. So as long as the intervals are the same and you're increasing or decreasing by the same amount specified by this set, you're totally fine. That's kind of like the big thing about these sets that I wanted to make sure that makes sense. And another thing to mention is that the numbers do not repeat. So you can't have like 0, 0, or anything like that, or you won't be able to have 0 like that either. So before actually going into and creating something brand new, I have an example from my recent song that I just posted where I actually use this, and it sounds like this. So what's actually going on here? Essentially, I'm creating a descending like pattern, kind of, or I'm making it sound like it's descending. So even though these notes are actually ascending in this set, I'm kind of going up and then down and then up again and then down again. So it's kind of like going, it gives it that vibe of, going up and down. And when I actually look at this, what's happening here is, if I can pull it up, this is the set that I used. So I used 2, 3, 5, and 8. So the prime form of that is 0, 1, 3, 6. And then this is the interval vector that I had for that part. And you can tell it's very minor. It has a lot of, 1 minor second, 2 minor thirds, a tritone in it, and then a couple, one perfect interval, and then 1 major second. But overall, it's very minor, and it sounds weird because it has this tritone in it as well. And you can verify this that it has these values, or like this is what the actual set is, by looking at this. So I know it's kind of hard to see, but this would be 0 to 1, and then the next note is 3 half steps away from the beginning, and then this is the tritone from D. So that would be the tritone there. And essentially all that I'm doing is I'm just moving and shifting this set around to kind of create this pattern. And that's it. So it sounds kind of cool. And yeah, this is how you can use this in your music. So let's go ahead and jump into actually creating one of these. All right, so let's try to create something cool here. I have a couple sets that I've already written out, and these are the 2 sets that I've created. These bottom 2, hang on, I'll just push this down here. This. So 3, 4, 8, 11, and 0. I basically found the prime form and then found the vector of it. So 3, 2, 2, 2, 1, 0. So it's kind of got a good mix of everything. There's nothing particularly interesting about it. So there's no tritones. There's not a whole lot of, I mean, there is minor. The big thing that I'm trying to do is to not share a lot of intervals between these 2 sets, and because I want them to sound different from each other as much as I can. So this is the first set that I have, and this is the second set. So let's go ahead and see what this first set sounds by plugging it into the Logic here on the piano. So I'm just going to start from C, and I'll just do quarter notes, I think, for now. We'll start with C, and then it goes 1, then 4 more for 5, 4, then 3 more to 8, 3, and then 1 more for 9. Alright, so that sounds like this. So we do this a couple times here. Then let's say we shift this down a little bit. Oh, that's a 4th. Yeah, that should sound kind of weird, but we'll see. Copy this. Yeah, well, I already have it. All right, so let's see what this sounds like. So this is just the first set here. So it sounds kind of cool, right? Let's try to add in the second set here. Like that. So the second set is, I'm just going to start on C again. And again, you don't have to start on C. I could start anywhere I want. I'm just starting on C because it's easier to see this. That's 2 half steps up. 2. Then 3. 2 more to 5. And then 1 to 6. Play this a couple times. We'll just kind of follow a similar pattern to the other ones. And let's just shift this up a little bit. And then back down. And let's see, actually I'm gonna copy this as well to kind of give us the feeling of that, like going back to the beginning, and you'll see kind of what I mean by when it's not completely atonal, because what should happen here is that when we get back to this part, this should feel more comfortable, because this is what we're gonna call our tonic, or our home set, if that makes sense. So let's listen to this. So from there, I definitely heard the difference. As soon as you get to, see, this point here, you can definitely tell it's a different set, and it sounds much different than what's played right here at the end. So that is exactly the feeling I was going for, or was hoping to get, the two different sets, and that's great. So what are some other ways that we can kind of play around with this instead of just repeating these notes like this? So like I said, we can, and what I've already done is we've transposed these, so we can shift this down or up to start at any note that we want. We can do that. We can come here and paste that here. We can actually go in, well, first I'll invert it. So what that means is instead of going up one, I go down one. And let's see, what are the intervals for this one? 1, 5, so I need to go 4 more. 2, 3, 4. And then 3 more to 8. 2, 3. And 1, 9. So we can play this like this. So this is inverted. Oh, whoops. Move this up a little bit just to kind of get sound a little better. Over here. And then we can kind of create this descending sounding lick here a little bit. Alright, so this is still the same set, it's just inverted. So this is another way that you can kind of play around with this. Let's try another one. Well, actually, let's listen to this first. We'll start here. So that is still the same set, it's just inverted. So now let's try the other way, which is actually going in reverse. So we would start at 9, which is A. So I'm going to start at A, which is right here. And then what notes do I have next? 8, so 9 to 8. And then I might actually believe that this is, yeah, I got the feeling that just by inverting it, it's just going backwards. But I'll double check that. So 5 would be F. And down 4. 4. And then 1. Is this just inverted? Not quite. Okay, so it's a little different. I was about to say, that looks awfully similar. But this is just in reverse. So this is starting from 9, 8, 5, 1, and then 0. So that's another way that we can play them. And again, you can shift these around wherever you want. So let's listen to, well, let's just listen to the entire thing now. So it sounds kind of weird, but it's pretty cool, right? And so this is kind of what you can do to add some chromaticism to your music. And you can do this at any time as long as you resolve this last note here to, or like whatever you're going into next. As long as it transitions smoothly, you can do this. So that's how we can use integer notation and vector intervals to create some pretty cool sounding chromatic patterns and add it to our music. I hope you learned something today and maybe inspire you to try something different with your music. And if you enjoyed the video, then like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next week.